You are listening to Themes and Memes, a different kind of movie review. I'm your host, Aaron. Here with me is my co-host, Adam. How you doing, Adam?
Yeah, I'm definitely Adam, and you're definitely Aaron.
Yeah, you got that. I want to call myself you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoops.
And we are back for real. So we said to people last time that we're going to actually relaunch the podcast and start doing it properly, regularly again. So here we are.
Yeah. This is exciting. The last one we recorded was on Thanksgiving. We did the review of Megalopolis. Had a lot of fun with that. And we're back with more films. Actually, we found a couple laying around this place. Today we're doing Dunes.
Dunes. Yeah. So they're referring to the Dune remakes from Denis Villeneuve. The first one being in 2021, and then the sequel to that was this year, so March 2024.
Yeah.
And we will just have a casual discussion, I guess, really about both the films. And I mean, the first thing that needs to be said about it is that I think, to be honest with you, these two films are really the only two films that I've seen in the past 5 years that actually really got me to sit up and take notice and actually enjoyed them,
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, this seems like the prime example of, well, what movie has come out? What movies have come out? And it seems like only this. Like, I can never even keep up with what's coming out. But then when I try, it doesn't seem like anything is. When I look at something, I have to, if I'm watching a trailer for something, I have to sit there and be like, okay, who made this? Because you'll see it's like a cinematic trailer for a film, and then wait for it. They'll say available exclusively on Prime Video. It's like, oh, okay, so this is just on Amazon. Like, Amazon produced this thing. They've got exclusive rights to it. You got to watch it through Amazon. So that's like a weird thing that happens. It's not always that just a film is made and put out in the traditional sense and just put out in theaters, and then, you can stream it anywhere after that. But Dune was like that.
Yeah, that's right. It was October 2021, the first one.
Yeah.
And that was in the theaters, and it was, we saw it in the theater, and it was worth it. Mm-hmm. Although, to be honest with you, I didn't think it was as good as I did when I watched it a few months later at home. I streamed it once it became available. I actually enjoyed it a lot more, so for one reason or another. At home. But what were your first impressions of the film, at least the first one?
I was surprised again at how good that it was. It reminded me of a lot of other films, but then again, the book Dune was always like a big influence on science fiction in the first place. And that came across me. I'm like, okay, this is like the first Star Wars movie where they're on the Tatooine.
Same story,
planet.
Basically.
Yeah, even with like so many of the same things. I was like, geez, okay, now I see where Star Wars got all these ideas from. So I kept thinking of that. But it just worked really good. It was visually really exciting. It had a lot of interesting ideas in there. So it gave you like tons to think about. Yeah. There's so many. I mean, the themes that if I were to like pick them out and say, these are the things to like that this is really talking about to me, is like the concept of aristocracy and bloodlines and things like that. I found fascinating, but also political control over the masses and the use of natural resources, and the way that like these things all sort of dance together. And then even religion, it plays with like religion and using religion as a weapon and things like this. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's all in there, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
all in. There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think straight off the bat with this one, I really just enjoyed the production and the way it was shot, and that was one of the things that just it caught me, yeah, from the get go.
Yeah.
Was that there was some exposition in it. I knew the story, though I'll admit I never actually read the book. I mean, I knew, yeah, again, knew the book, knew the story, but hadn't actually read it cover to cover or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it made the story very accessible, and you know the film did, and I think what Denis Villeneuve did in this film was something that he did also in a way with Blade Runner, is that he creates space,
Yes.
big spaces, and
Yes.
a lot of long shots. Um, the dialogue can be quite minimal,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I would say, yeah, it's sort of I don't know what the right words to use is, but it's like a
It's
less is more type thing.
yes, it's
It's
surprising
minimal,
because it's kind of like it's minimal, but it also kind of moves slow, like technically
exactly.
speaking,
Yeah,
but somehow it still engages you. Like visually, the visuals are so powerful that they engage you.
the combination of the visuals and the music.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
forgive me if I may. Is it Hans Zimmer who did the soundtrack on this?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good
it
question.
was.
Is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes. I
Pretty
forgot.
damn sure it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to look that up right
Sure.
now.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Check it out. I
Um,
mean, if that's the case, then of course it's good. Yeah, he's awesome. He's one of the.
yeah, Hans Zimmer, of course. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, his
Hans
stuff
Zimmer.
is really good. I do. I'm thinking back and trying. I remember the feel of the soundtrack. I if I heard it, I'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, this is it. But
Oh yeah.
it was definitely working. And yeah, we did that review of the Blade Runner
Hmm.
2049. So that's back in the archives if anybody want to go back and listen to that. But I always think back at that film like, man, that was so good. Like that's
Yes, it was fantastic. I mean, to be honest with you, really, I felt Dune was the only film that had come along since Blade Runner that it was actually worth watching in terms of well, yeah,
yeah, just
at
straight
least in
up.
terms of
Yeah.
science fiction. But for me, straight up, yeah, for
Yeah.
me in general. But definitely, without a question, it's like the only science fiction film worth watching since Blade Runner,
Yeah.
and same director. So
Yeah.
that's why he's got something good going on there for sure.
Absolutely.
I think the what he does is he it's like he creates these worlds that and he draws you in somehow. The combination of this very minimalistic photography, big long shots, everything's moving very slowly. There's not a lot of noise, not a lot of detail, and this combined with the music, I mean, you really enter that world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it's a totally immersive. I found it immersive, and not just in the cinema either, at home as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, the title of this Dune is referencing just the overall aesthetic and the overall feel of this whole narrative is that it is the desert. It's almost like this is
Yeah,
the desert, and they're constantly referring to that. It's like, oh yeah, we're
yeah.
in the desert, and
Hmm.
so visually, it's in a very wide open place, right? So wide open
Yeah.
desert landscapes that are it's fascinating because they make it look it's shot in actual desert locations, it's real, but there's also compositing going on, so they make it look
Hmm.
alien, so they make it look familiar and they make it look alien all at the same time. I think just the idea of wide open empty space and emptiness, a landscape where to the eye appears as though nothing is there, although there's nothing and everything there all at the same time. So I
Hmm.
mean, I love all these ideas, and I love the desert just in real life too. So I appreciate all
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, as far as I know, they used quite a lot of models in this one as well. So obviously there is CGI in there,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I'm not sure which is which, but they used a lot of models as well, which a lot of modern sci-fi films don't do. It's all on computer.
Yeah. That gives it,
Yeah,
that always
and it makes
gives
a
it a
difference.
real look when you do that. So that would contribute to, oh yeah, I'm looking at an actual landscape, even when it's like, an art piece. Essentially, it comes off as being totally real.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, I think, part of how they really draw you into these worlds. And because you're looking at something real, it's totally alien, right? And it's totally distant, and it's fantastical. But at the same time, it's it looks it looks real, yeah, and it draws you
Mm-hmm.
in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and then you've got this desert planet. They establish it as like, look, this is this harsh, unforgiving world where you come and you're going to die.
yeah,
You have to fight for your very life to exist here.
yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got these. Uh, what you have inserted in there is these people coming to conquer the world, these aristocratic families coming in, setting up giant industrial base. Like a mining operation is what they got going there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they set up their like mining city. That's like, it's funny, they do pretty good of establishing like the city is just this tiny little area on this giant desert planet because that's all they can get away with doing. But you've got the city that they set up for the for the aristocrats that are running the show. They do a good job of showing the space that they live in as like this very like luxurious, serene, architectural, beautiful space that they live in. Like there's this
mm,
room I remember this room that they're in with like these like really clean walls, and they've got like these long crazy windows looking out onto the desert and the mining
I love
operation.
those
They've
shots. Yeah,
Yeah, they've got like a bonsai tree sitting there. It's like very minimalist, but it's like very like, you know what I
it's
mean?
like it's modernist design differently. Yeah, and modernist minimalist. And with big high ceilings and long hallways. Some of it's underground. It's all shielded by thick, heavy walls to shield it from the heat,
Yeah, they're like
And
20 feet thick or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And they, yeah, I really enjoyed the atmosphere that was created in those indoor locations and those shots inside the cities, and in the residency or wherever it was they're living.
Yep.
Um, I call it. It's like I came up with a term to describe it. It's like visual reverb. It's
Visual reverb.
yeah, like if you know what reverb is in audio terms,
Yeah.
it's how you create space. It's kind of like an echo. It's a
Mm-hmm.
soft echo, and you like take a sound and make it sound like it's in a big room. And somehow they did the same thing with visually in the film. Like you feel or see somehow the size of these big modernist
Yes.
interiors.
Yeah, because it's
Um,
it's it's an interesting thing going on because they're closed in, and again, it's this tiny speck on a giant desert landscape. But at the same time, it's massive, and from an architectural point of view, like this is a gigantic room. This is a gigantic
yeah,
building. So
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
huge and it's tiny all at the same time, which is fascinating.
yeah, yeah. And so these are the things that really impressed me right off the bat. Going in.
Hmm. So it's what
Yeah.
the Atreides are the family in charge of the mining at the start of this, right?
No, the
No?
Harkonnens are the ones in charge at the start. They are
Oh, okay.
the with the Baron Harkonnen, the big fat guy
Yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
floats around all the time. Um,
In his
they
oil
are in
bath.
charge at the beginning. Yeah, exactly in his oil bath. Yeah, and yeah, so they're in charge at the beginning, and then the emperor, by royal decree, decides that he will relieve them of control of the planet Arrakis and hand over mining rights, basically, and responsibilities to the House Atreides. So Paul's
Yes,
house,
yes.
and there's a whole political intrigue aspect to this. This is not, in fact, a benevolent gift or purely economical at all. It is a power play. It's a political power play to get one house to destroy the other. So
Yes.
the the emperor feels threatened by the Atreides, and therefore he paints a target on their back by giving them what somebody else had, knowing full well that they will attack and destroy them to take it back. So he gets to keep his hands clean, so to speak,
Yeah.
and eliminate the competition or potential threat at least. So that's what's going on there in that part of the story. This is where it sort of kicks off. Really, it's what it's about.
Okay, yeah. So it starts out
Yeah.
with the Atreides coming in and taking over the operation.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the Harkonnens were the established house there, right? So you've got these families,
Right. Yeah.
these aristocratic bloodlines, these families, these houses
Yeah.
that are part of a larger power structure. That at the top is, as you're saying, like the emperor is at the top of this and gets
That's
to
right,
kind of
yeah.
dictate to these different families what they will do, like what their role in the empire is. Do you remember how many different families there are in total in this story? I can't remember.
Yeah, well, we should have read. One of us should have read the book.
I know.
They never mention that. They never mention that in either of the films.
Yeah.
They just refer to the great houses. That's what they call them. And so there's a handful, at least a handful of them, a handful of other they're sort of kingdoms. Yeah, basically, with I don't know, a handful of them that have got a significant level of power and influence. So,
Yeah.
or military capability, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, and now we're right in the thick of the concept of aristocracy and bloodlines and all that, and there's just so many places to go. Just the they do use the term like house in this film, right? I remember them saying like House of Atreides,
house.
right? They say that.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
There's just so much to do with that terminology, like house. There's so much esoteric stuff going on, similar to House of the Zodiac. So that's a term in that we use, and that's used in esoterica. And I don't know where you want to go with that, if you do at all, Adam, or if we're jumping too far in too quick. But it's
well, when I'm thinking about the amount of content that we could talk about here, I mean, we should probably try and keep it fairly broad, really, because there's two films we're talking about, and like you said, we could so easily just go on for another half an hour talking about one part of one of the films, and getting right into the plot. And I mean, there's a lot of political intrigue. There's a lot going on. There's multiple stories weaving in together, and sort of a Game of Thrones type scenario in a way, and happening. And we could spend a lot of time deconstructing all of that. But anyone who's listening to this will have seen the films, so maybe it's not necessary that we go into that much detail about the plot itself. But what were some of the ideas, the other ideas that came up? You talked about, bloodlines, and I think there's a eugenics angle there. We see this in the first film. It is revealed that Paul Atreides, the son of Leto Atreides, House Atreides, has been bred. His mother is part of a religious occult order, called the Bene Gesserit. It's an all-female cult, basically.
That's right. That's right.
And I feel that the name is supposed to be a play on the word Jesuit, because they're called the Bene Gesserit, and it just made me think of Jesuits.
And the Benny in front is like beneficent or good or benevolent, right? So it's like
benefactor, right.
So you got that going on too. That's interesting.
So he is the product of generations and generations of a eugenics program of matching up mates to eventually produce the like some kind of messianic figure with special powers, basically.
Yeah, specifically with occult powers that are bred into them. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
And so this is revealed to us pretty early on in the first film. And I thought that was fascinating because, right off the get-go, we're we want to talk about aristocracy and power, we have the official power structure, and then it's revealed to us very early on that we have a religious order who are in fact pulling the strings
Yes.
behind the scenes.
Yes.
So people with special knowledge, with occult knowledge,
Hmm.
with a very, very esoteric culture and cult, uh, with a very esoteric agenda
Yeah. So it's
that is not largely not known
it's a
to others. Yeah,
it's a priesthood, and they're working
priesthood. Yeah,
within these different bloodlines specifically, so that they are, you know, breeding the right family member with the right one. So they're in control of that for political purposes, but again, they are controlling things with their special knowledge, and it's shown that the Bene Gesserit are working directly with the emperor later too.
yeah, yeah.
So
Exactly.
they're just kind of like bouncing around where they need to go to get to move things along according to, you know, a very specific plan.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty wild to see. Yeah, it
To see
does.
that in the film,
Yeah, right. Like I feel like this doesn't like
that was what
explicitly show up as very often, but it's definitely happening here.
this was the yeah, this was a big takeaway for me, definitely from seeing the first film, was just that concept explored and even contained, well, even presented as part of the story as a significant part and explored to some degree
Hmm.
was like I can't remember ever seeing another film which dealt with this kind of concept really.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's
it got
central.
my
It's
attention.
really central to the story because the main character Paul Atreides, he's caught up in the middle of this. He is part of the House of Atreides. He's Paul Atreides, so he's in there. But he's also the son of this Bene Gesserit who's covertly placed herself in there to breed within that specific bloodline, so that, you know, he would pop up and he would you know, he would be Bene Gesserit and an agent of sorts, working within
Yeah,
this
basically.
working within this framework of this eugenic bloodline framework. You've got that in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, his father, the Duke, knows this. He doesn't
Yeah.
maybe understand it all, but he knows full well that well, she's his concubine, not his wife, but
Hmm.
they are a couple, you know, and he knows full well that she is part of this religious order, and how much more he knows about what their goals are is not explicitly explained in the film, but yeah, it just made me think about different levels of understanding and awareness throughout the whole sort of aristocratic power structure. Who understands what, who knows what, and
Well,
yeah, who can see
this
how
gets
much and all of that.
this gets into the concept of like intelligence operations too, and
Yeah,
the Bene Gesserit. It's implied that the here they're used specifically for a breeding operation, but it's
yeah,
implied that the Bene Gesserit use like uh, sexuality as part of not just like their sort of magical powers, but their control. So they're using it for
absolutely. Well, this we see
power.
this in the second film. Yeah,
Yeah, that really comes out in the second film, but you're seeing the start of it in the first there. But like, okay, this Paul, like, what, that he arrived because of this, because of this intermarriage thing, and but it's pretty fascinating because I know that in actual intelligence, this sort of thing is used to gather information on important people and, like, you know, to fool people and
to manipulate and to blackmail as well. You know,
mm-hmm.
to gain psychological control over somebody that way is definitely part of it as well, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So they're explicitly just showing you this.
Yeah,
So pretty wild.
yeah, and it's kind of accepted. So exactly how much what people understand is unclear, but they do operate like as if they've got a mandate or something, like spies, you know.
Yeah,
And
because
they're always
the leader
wearing
is
black with the black veil and
yeah.
hiding themselves.
Yeah. The leader's like, oh, did you do that? And are you doing? You know, basically, did you do things according to plan, and are you using your powers? And there's so many different scenes that are just, well, like that gets into the second too with the Harkonnen guy. There's the scene that specifically shows like the manipulation going on. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
That was on that subject. That was something that I thought was a pretty powerful statement in the film. Was in the second one where one of these Bene Gesserit characters goes and seduces one of the Harkonnens because it is thought that he may take control of Arrakis. They're not sure. They don't know, but they want to develop him, vet him, or groom him as a prospect.
Candidate. Yeah,
he's a candidate for their breeding program, and so he's a total psychopath. I mean, a real psychopath, you know. But they make it very explicit that they don't care. All they care about is whether he can be controlled or not. And through this process of seduction and sort of a bit of grooming and analysis, it's revealed that he's sexually vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You know, this is the way we can get to him. Yeah. He can work for us, and here's how we do it. We know what his weaknesses are, and she couples with him, mates with him, and becomes pregnant with his child as part of the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely another concept that I can't remember seeing anything like that in any other film. So
yeah, no,
got my attention.
It weaves in, as we're saying, the idea of aristocracy, controlled breeding, eugenics, intelligence operations, sex magic, the occult, the occult priesthood, all of this is like happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this being done. What is the actual ends to all this is maintaining control over, their order, which derives its power from the extraction of this magical natural resource, the spice thing. We haven't talked about the spice yet, but it's a really interesting concept in that it is presented as, look, this is a natural resource. It's something that's occurring on the planet of Arrakis. It's like in the sand or whatever. It's just kind of like all over the place. But then if you extract it and you process it or whatever, it's turned into this. It's like this catch-all source of power. It can do all these different things.
Yeah.
So there's all that going on.
It's a magical kind of substance, which is, number one, it's got psychoactive properties. So
that's right.
It's kind of like a drug, but it's supposed to improve strength, stamina, memory, perception, mental acuity, or cognition, blah, 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 all this stuff. And for that reason, is also essential for space travel.
Yes.
Because in the Dune world, and this is something I found fascinating, in the Dune world, computers are banned. They don't exist. You're not allowed to have them. They were outlawed many, many, many years ago in this universe. And what they have instead are these, I don't know what you'd call them. There's a specific breed of people or aliens, and it's not really explicitly. Again, it's probably in the book, but I think they call them mentars, and these are these human computers, and they can make all of these complex calculations, these sort of highly complex mathematical computations that are required to travel across the galaxy for long-term space flight, long distance. And so that's kind of the big economic reason for it all. It's the fuel in a way that allows all of this to happen.
Yes.
And but I really enjoyed the fact that in this story there were no computers. Yeah. It's a sci-fi film, and there was no screens. Yeah. There's no, none of this swiping and a touch screen here, and
there's not even typing.
not even typing. Yeah, I mean, or no, not speaking to computers or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was so refreshing,
Mm-hmm.
so refreshing. It felt analog, you know,
Yeah, yeah. It feels very. It's almost like steampunk or something, right?
steampunk or something, right?
It's similar to
Yeah. Well, I
that.
mean, similar. Like Star Wars was kind of like the original steampunk, you know,
Yeah.
but Star Wars is based on this. Well, it was okay, not based on, but heavily influenced by this book.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, definitely. I mean, we go into the what do they call them? The ornithopter. These like insect things
Yeah,
that
it looks like a
fly.
dragonfly. It's a helicopter that looks like a dragonfly, is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are really
and
cool.
yeah, everybody loves them. Yeah, they're cool. But without there's no computer screens. It's all analog. It looks like an old bomber plane, like an old propeller plane or something, you know.
Yeah,
That's
it's
just sort of analog gauges and control stick, and it's all scratched and scuffed, and you know,
yeah,
so rare to see something like that in a sci-fi film.
it
Thought it was really
is.
cool, really refreshing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's I think it's playing with the idea that again going back to the spice is this natural occurring almost mystic substance that is of the earth. It's a completely naturally occurring thing, but then it's used as this impetus to create technology. So there are technologies here, but the technologies that we're seeing visually look just like things that we recognize from the natural world. So I think they're playing with this. Well, what if technology just is more natural? It's powered by this natural occurring force, and it's almost like the world being transformed and evolved artificially. So there is that, but without the computers, again, is pretty fascinating.
yeah,
So it's like this. It's taking things in a direction that we don't know. So this is like an alien concept to us. It's like, well, what is because we're doing this. It's just like this alchemical process of recreating our world through occult means, really.
yeah.
But the world that we know involves computers and interfacing with a machine that seems to be it seems to defy nature and be of its own and have its own reality. Where here we're seeing in Dune, it's just taking nature and more directly altering it. And it's like, yeah, we've got these giant bug things that we fly in that are powered by
Hmm.
spice. You following this, Adam? Is this making
Yeah,
sense?
totally. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
I
Well, I mean, the technology is in this world strictly utilitarian. You know, they use it only as much as is necessary
yeah.
um, to get things done. Um, and that's, yeah, it's totally different to the world that we live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you say, here it's lifestyle. It becomes a way of living. The interfacing with the machine is the way you live now,
Mm-hmm.
increasingly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, smartphones and laptops and all that. You know,
Yeah. And we are
whereas
focused, we're focused on the aristocracy here too, the ones that are, uh, they live for power. They live for their own power. And it seems like even in our world, again, the people that are like that, they do things like, yeah, my kids don't have a tablet, my kids don't have a computer because I don't allow them. I mean, there's almost like it seems like it's understood that people with power don't want to like give it up to something like a technological piece of powerful equipment that they want. It's almost like they defy that. Like, no, I am the one in charge. I am the one that this is my machine and I use it and I control it and I can take the spice away if I want. Like it seems like there's something like
this
that going on.
it seems to be that somewhere in the history of this universe, this fictional universe, the brakes were pumped pretty like big time, and it was decided that technology had to go in a different direction, and that certain things had to be stopped and never used again, i.e., computers. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I liked it. I really liked that part of the film and the story. So
it's a very interesting idea, and it begs the question if that's like a point in time that we're headed to in the real world. Honestly,
there are days, days when I wish I could just throw the damn smartphone out the window and never deal with it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's difficult.
it seems like we're maybe headed toward an inflection point, but in the world of Dune, that's what they decided to do. We know that much. Spice it's a drug. It's an industrial material. It's used as a power supply. So it's power. So when they're setting up this mining operation, they're mining to do everything, that they need to do. It's there on this, and it is implied that Arrakis is the only planet that has spice, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's right. And that's why it's so fiercely fought over because it can't be get it's yeah, can't be can't be obtained anywhere else. And I don't know if this is actually the story or not, but I think it's kind of inferred really that this is a product of the worms themselves, the big sandworms.
Yeah, the sandworms. Yeah, those are crazy.
Because, this is, I mean, what a crazy thing to have in the story. That's I remember when I first like discovered the Dune. I saw the first one, the David Lynch one.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this dumb? What worms?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Giant worms. Whose idea was this?
Yes.
Again, not knowing the book, but
Well,
kind of, it's still a bit. It's still, if there was one part of the film that seems a little silly, it would be that. But I mean, it's part of the story, and they make it work. So
what's crazy? Taking that even further is I agree completely. The sandworms seem downright stupid. Like, what the hell is this? A giant worm that somehow like tunnels through the sand super fast. Like, this is really dumb. Like, what is this? But at the same time, this has been one of the most influential things that has recurred in pop culture and over again from Dune is that we see the sandworms in like Tremors, right? They're the sandworms.
Yeah.
We see them in the movie Beetlejuice. We see sandworms like all over the damn place. And you would think it'd be the last thing that would like be imitated from this because it seems like the dumbest thing, but it's somehow there's something about it that I guess isn't. I don't know.
They, yeah, I don't know. All I know is that in this film they pull it off. They take an idea that's kind of dumb, which I still think is the concept is a little silly, and they make it work somehow.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel dumb. Yeah. It's part of the story. It's part of the universe, and you kind of accept it. You can kind of at least roll with it,
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think that the surfing, like riding them, was right on the edge of my like credulity, like I was sort of like, oh, you guys are really pushing it now.
Yeah, do we have to do this? Like, I can deal with like this giant worm coming out of the sand and coming to devour you and kill you, and you have to be careful not to let that happen. But that seems a bridge too far. But again, hey, this is Dune, okay? This is what you get.
Yeah, this is what you get, and this is part of the thing. And the studio wants to make it cool for kids, like under 12s or whatever. I don't know what the rating was, but I guess that was some of that. And
yeah,
it becomes part of the story. Paul has to go through this ritual. He obviously, if anyone who knows the story will know that his family is almost wiped out, by the Harkonnens, predictably, and he goes off to join the native inhabitants of the planet and has to learn their ways. So you've got a bit of it's like Avatar, Pocahontas story here again.
Yes, it plays with the idea of indigenous population. That's another theme that's pretty interesting, actually, in this. That it plays with that and like people that have been living naturally in that space for how an untold amount of time. You've got them, and then their world is upended by this outside alien group that just pops in and starts setting up mining operations all of a sudden. So you've got the conflict that inevitably ensues there.
Yeah, and they themselves don't. They have a completely different lifestyle, but they have no need really for the spice apart from the fact that it is abundant, and because they live with it, and I guess they're inhaling it or it's absorbing it into their bodies. They do have this increased vitality and all of these medical benefits that it is said to have. You get the blue eyes, they make the eyes go blue once you've been exposed to it for a long time.
That's right. Yeah.
But apart from that, they don't mine it themselves, so they live live on this harsh planet, but they have no apparent need to mine the resources that they have access to. It's other people coming in and taking over and doing it themselves. So yeah, I mean that's a story that we've seen in many films.
Yes. Well, it's the story of our world, so I mean, it makes sense that in fiction we'd see it over and over again. You've got just naturally, not just the natural world, but the people living in and with it in just a harmonious, natural kind of quiet way, as opposed to the concept of, well, are we going to have civilization? Are we going to build a society? Are we going to build up a society and technology and start building something and work up towards something? And then that's where the occult religion comes in, because if you're starting to build something in this artificial way, you kind of have to have this religious faithful devotion toward the thing that you're building is going to be, what is it? And then whatever you say what it's going to be, that kind of becomes the basis of your religion, right?
Well, this is the thing that we're getting back to something that's quite interesting and important to talk to here, because although we've talked about the spice and how that's the sort of the main economic driver behind all of this, and it's one of the main reasons that and ways through which people can obtain power and hold on to power or take it from somebody else, is the control of this resource. There's something that goes far beyond that, and we're talking about this occult, like religious order. They themselves are not particularly interested just in the spice or in Arrakis. They've got something much bigger going on in terms of their apparent breeding program. So this is a religious thing which transcends any one generation. It's a belief in something that goes well beyond economics, beyond one person's lifetime, generations, hundreds of years. So we're looking at dedication.
Yeah.
And that again, that's another sort of another look at a very central part of aristocracy that I had not seen in any other film before this.
Yeah.
It was just that idea of working towards a goal.
Yes.
That you yourself would perhaps, or the characters themselves would never see realized in their own lifetime.
Yeah.
But working towards it with absolute conviction, religious conviction.
They even play with the concept of like the declining emperor too, because the emperor they show him as becoming old. And aren't they talking about the need aren't they trying to oust him? I forget how that actually happens in the second film. What are they doing? It's Christopher Walken, first of all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we got that going for us. We get that treat. He's the emperor. But isn't the Bene Gesserit, the high priestess is there living in the palace with the emperor in the second film. She's like right there. Don't they live in the same place?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. Basically, the emperor has a daughter, and she has been inducted into the order. She is a Bene Gesserit, so she has been trained in all their occult ways, their magic. They have this thing called the Way, which is kind of like the Force in Star Wars or something. You have these special powers. Mm-hmm. They can command people to do things purely by the use of voice alone.
Yeah.
We could get into that.
I forgot about the daughter. Yes, I forgot about her.
Voice.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, right, the daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, because the daughter is like the protege of the high priestess of the entire order. She's like the next in line.
Student,
yeah.
She's next in line for the throne. She's born into royalty and trained by the Bene Gesserit sister her entire life. So she's next in line for the throne, and this goes down into the whole, basically the way that the film ends in terms of strategic matchmaking and gaining power in Arrakis and all that stuff. But I'm not sure if the Bene Gesserit actually live with the Emperor, but they're very close. They're there.
They live on.
Who's calling the shots?
It's some other planet off Arrakis, which is like seen as this sort of it's this idyllic spot, and again
Garden.
the emperor's living in this amazing palace that is just like he's an especially curated garden they're hanging out in, and he's talking with the high priestess that is there, and his daughter's there. So if they're not in the palace, they're on the same planet, and they're coming in on a business trip to talk directly to the emperor, and they're talking about things there. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
You get the impression, at least in these scenes, that he's not necessarily in control.
Yes.
That he's on the decline. He is not as smart and as cunning as his daughter and her associates.
Mm-hmm.
And that although he still technically holds this title and is still technically the emperor, you get the distinct impression that he himself is probably being manipulated to some degree, or at least is not 100% aware of all the games that are being played around him.
You've also got
it's kind of inferred.
Right with this, you also get the playing around with the concepts of the different sexual forces and the genders, male and female, and the sort of power dynamics between the like creative forces that are masculine and feminine, and the perception of power versus the reality of power.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
So,
definitely.
So it's like, the big king, the big daddy is in control, but then that's just the story that is, given to be believed by everybody, when the reality
that's the PR image.
Yeah, the PR image. But the reality is, no, the women are in control in this case.
Well, yeah.
So
he may be the emperor, but who's whispering in his ear? So the whole time, yeah.
Yeah, and the Bene Gesserit, it's how does that work out? Because the Bene Gesserit have to be female. They're only female, but then Paul is being learned in the ways by his mother. He's like learning the techniques, so he can't be one of them, but he's learning what they do. What's going on with that? I don't remember.
Well, his mother was told not to do that, and apparently they, I think the idea is that the Bene Gesserit can choose the gender of the child if they're trained highly enough. They have control over that conception process to a degree.
Yeah.
I think it's inferred. I could be wrong on that, but there is a scene in the first film where Paul's mother, the Bene Gesserit sister, is told off because for exactly that reason. Because Paul is a male, she trained him in their ways regardless, and it was said that she shouldn't have done that because he will never be as good as a female. He will never understand their ways or be able to employ them as powerfully or as efficiently as a woman might have, a female. So that's actually mentioned. Yeah.
Well, there's that ritual where they do that thing to the baby sandworm and they turn it into the blue liquid thing, and then they feed it to you. And I remember them specifically saying that only a woman can survive drinking this stuff, right? And then they give it to Paul.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they say about that?
Well, what happens? Yeah, that's basically what happens is in the second film, Paul and his mother go to live with the Fremen, the natives, because they have nowhere else to go, basically.
Yeah.
And Paul decides that that's his destiny. He's going to learn their ways and become one of them and fight on their side. Blah blah blah. She is invited to become the new high priestess, because many of the Fremen believe that Paul is the Messiah, and that his mother is also a highborn, chosen mother of the Messiah. Messianic story, all the usual stuff. Because the Bene Gesserit have been feeding that story to them and building that belief for generations, she is then invited to become the what do you call the witch, the high witch, the female priest of their society.
That's right.
And part of that is that she's got to drink the blood or the urine of a baby sandworm, which is like a intoxicating drug experience that gives you incredible insight, but could also kill you. You know?
Yeah, it can kill you, and
Um,
it's implied that makes you a bit deranged too, right?
yeah, it's a kind of a one-way ticket basically. It's like if you survive it, you'll never be the same again, because you'll be able to, yeah, you will gain all of a sudden the knowledge of all the previous, yeah, the priestesses basically.
Yeah, but you
You'll be the
might
holder of the knowledge. Yeah,
you'll have this knowledge, but you'll kind of be insane at the same time. So
yeah, and she's pregnant, so
that's
what happens?
right.
This is revealed to us in the
That's right.
first film
Yeah.
that she had become pregnant. She takes this drug, the worm juice, whilst being pregnant, and it's shown immediately that the unborn baby, the fetus, is endowed with the very same, I don't know, clairvoyance that she is.
That's
So
right.
right
And
from,
it,
right from the get go, there's your breeding, your the what's the word I'm looking for here? The fulfillment, the manifestation of this big agenda, this big program, the eugenics thing, the breeding program, is
yeah.
we've now got a baby in the womb who could talk to the
It's
mother
it's it's
and is clairvoyant and
it's
all that
pretty
stuff.
wild because it's what they're doing in this scene is you've got the aristocratic family that's off other world that came here to exploit it again, to mine it as part of this larger civilization that's basically imperial. You've got that
Hmm.
mixing in with the native indigenous population, which is just living on their planet with their ways. So you've got the mixing of those two worlds. um so it's playing with that concept, and it kind of does it with the idea of religion too, which different civil both of these peoples have religion that express a similar idea in the occult concept, this veneration of the attainment of this supernatural power
Hmm.
by ways of using the earth, the natural element of, in this case, the spice, right? Or it's the
Hmm.
spice, the sandworm. You make this blue stuff and you take it in this ritualistic way. This is what the native Fremen people did. So that was their
Yeah.
way of creating a priesthood, was by so they, I guess that was their way of using spice or arrakis, the power of the natural world, to do that, to have this transcendental experience to create their own priesthood. Then you've got this priesthood off planet, this again, this imperial power coming in with their same ideas, and they're sort of
Yeah.
intermixing the two. So, I mean, you've got these two very different ways of life coming together, but it's showing that no matter how you're living, you always have this weird religious aspect where it's like, okay, what ritual do you do? How do you gain this supernatural power, which is somehow also naturally occurring, right?
Yeah, and it makes me think about the idea of, yeah, compartmentalized religion. There's different levels of understanding. It's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is again this thing with it being a Jesuit sounding like Jesuit. It's like you've got
Yes.
even if you just take the Catholic religion as an example, you've kind of got what the masses believe down the bottom,
Yep.
what the sort of the priests in the middle would believe, and then the beliefs and the rites and rituals of Jesuits, and there's multiple levels of that within the Vatican as well.
You
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 know,
know
so you've got different levels. Yeah.
whenever I think of the Catholic religion now and the very real occult side of it, I think of Godfrey Reggio, actually, the guy who did the Koyaanisqatsi films. He lived within a monastery, a Catholic monastery. So he's a Catholic monk, and he's a guy who knows about the esoteric aspects of Catholicism because he lived it for years. He lived in that monastery, and he's a guy who would talk explicitly about different esoteric aspects of Catholicism. So
Wow.
something that
Yeah.
you think of like most people are thinking the esoteric, like I went to mass on Sunday. There absolutely
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
There absolutely are priesthoods within every religion.
yeah,
Even
yeah,
something that
yeah,
you don't realize it's there. It is. And so this is like a universal thing. Like just take any given example of
yeah.
any religion, this is going on. And they're showing you that in this film. Like, oh, you're part of a tribe that lives out in the middle of nowhere where nobody else lives, just the tribe. Yeah, they have their beliefs and their aspect of this. They have a priesthood. You've got this crazy industrial society that's actually run by this occult priesthood. Yeah, they have that too. And then the Bene Gesserit's coming in here. Like, there's the idea that the mother is kind of like trying to get one over on the people, right? And doesn't she kind of feel probably like intellectually superior or something, like she's gonna
Yeah,
like be able to
definitely.
control the Fremen because she's better because she comes from this higher society? And
Well,
there's that idea too, right?
yeah, she knows that she's there to for a reason, that her religious order has built the foundations of this religion in which she and her son are central figures, right? She
Yes.
knows that.
Yeah.
Yet and so she's very pragmatic about it, and she talks very openly to Paul about, we've got to manipulate the people this way, we've got to use that, we've got to use fear, we've got to use anything, to get the job done. We're here for a reason. We are going to lead these people. We are going to be the ones in control of this planet, and here's how we're going to do it. And so she's definitely, yeah, very elitist in that sense. And but at the same time, yeah, she also has a religious belief in what she's doing, but on a
Yes,
completely different
exactly.
level.
Yeah, yeah,
On a
and
completely
she's
different level.
almost blinded to the fact that that's who she is. She's not
Yeah,
even she's like not even self-aware of that.
yeah. So she's got all of these religious convictions herself, and she is obedient to someone above her, and she is fulfilling part of a plan that somebody else created, and she is probably in the dark on some level about what the ultimate goal of bringing about the, what is it called, the Kwisatz Haderach was the name that they gave it in their order for the one,
Oh, okay.
So she is, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, no matter what religion, no matter what part of the world, you've got the exoteric stuff for the masses, and then you've got layers and layers above it.
Well,
um
well, it's fascinating too because they show the Fremen people as the victims of a campaign to use a sort of like evangelist
yeah,
form of
exactly, yeah.
religion.
Missionary work, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So they specifically come in there and rile up the Fremen people with all of
Yeah,
their pre-existing concepts of, we have this prophecy, we have that, and they make them believe like, yeah, the prophecy is coming true. Check it out. This is the chosen one. So they're playing to that the whole time to get them ramped up to like fight this sort of crusade. So they're
yeah,
using
a
this
crusade, a jihad,
evangelical,
yeah.
yeah, they're using this evangelical religion on the indigenous people to exploit them. So they're
Yeah,
using religion there as a weapon. And the high priests themselves are also being used in a sort of way that goes beyond what they even realize. So it's
yeah,
working all over the place.
yeah, it is. And it's there were some interesting ideas, an interesting idea, and all of that to do with how fated and yeah, how much did there's a whole idea about fate, because initially Paul is very resistant to this because he understands that this is a technique that this is weaponizing religion, and that this is
Yeah, yeah, he explicitly realizes
he
that. Like, I know it's this. I know that they're going to try to get
yeah,
me to do that, and I'm going to fall for it. If I get all
ex
wrapped up in it, I can't do that.
exactly. He has at least enough knowledge from his own background to understand the techniques that are being used, how they're being used, why, what the agendas are, you
Yeah.
know. So he understands all of that, and morally objects to it. He doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't want them to see him as a messiah. He just wants to be one of them, like on their level, and fight the good fight, be one of them and fight the oppressors, the people who want to come in and take the land away from them all. kill
Yeah.
him or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah,
The
and
Harkonnens, right?
it's explained that he's honest in wanting to do that. He's like an honest guy, and
Yeah,
so he's the protagonist. Like, oh, I like this guy. He wants to do the right thing, so he's out there
exactly.
doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's out there doing that, and then what we see, and this was, I guess, a kind of a bit of I felt kind of a twist for me, not having read the book, but in the second film, and in the end, to cut a long story short, Paul takes on his prophesized role.
Mm-hmm.
He embraces it basically, and he becomes a messiah. And he rallies, he really riles the people up and rallies them together behind him. He unifies them. And
Yes.
I wasn't expecting it, and I don't know how I felt about it when because it
Yes.
was kind of unexpected,
It,
and we thought this guy's going to fight the
you
good
you
fight,
feel
or is
you
he going to
feel
give in? Or
betrayed. You feel betrayed as the audience because you bought into him being the hero, and he was like saying like, "Hey, look, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist it."
he's supposed to be the working class hero, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But
For the
then
people, right?
it's fascinating because
Yeah.
what it is it's a drama that plays itself out. He is playing the character of the Messiah. He
Yeah.
knows he's playing a character, but in this sort
Yes.
of Dionysian sense, the character becomes him, where he starts living the role and it becomes real. And he's kind of convinced, he's not even convincing himself. It's almost like he
No.
is in this drunken state, again, like Dionysian, where he is the ritual itself and the playing it out. It overtakes you, and you become the
Right.
character. And so the story that is supposed to play itself out in a narrative sense, you just go along with it, and it overtakes you, and you become the
Well,
Messiah.
I had wondered. I'd had all of those thoughts. What you just said there, I had wondered about all of that in this sort of final act of the film. I guess you call it the third act of the second film, whereas is where all of this happens.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's what's going on there, and I thought about it a lot, and it's interesting because it's like he gets the gift of this kind of clairvoyance. So he drinks the worm juice as well. His mother drank it. It made her sick, but she survived. The unborn sister of Paul, the baby, uh, also has this power now. And I can't remember exactly, Paul realizes at some point that he also needs to drink this juice, even though it is prophesied that no man shall survive it.
Yeah, that's right.
He has to go and do it anyway. He realizes this is his path, whatever. He drinks it. Of course, he does get sick, but he survives it. And now all of a sudden he can see everything clearly. There's no longer just sort of like disjointed images and dreams and sort of vague intuitions anymore. He is literally able to see the future. And he says at that point in time, in all of the possible futures that I can see, our enemies prevail, except one. And there's one where there is a narrow way through. And that way through is him adopting the role that was designed for him.
Mm.
And I found that very, very interesting because it's like, yeah, there's a lot to do with like pragmatism and fate and different ways of looking at things. And it's like the one thing he didn't want to do ended up being the only thing that he felt he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And again, at the end of the film, it all becomes about that, and he sort of has to give up his real one true love, the Chani character, in order to make a strategic partnership with the emperor's daughter, to marry her, because that's the only strategic thing that makes sense. It's the
That's
only way
right.
forward.
That's right. Yes.
And so this is
so he abandons his
Paul
true love and all that, the true love that was the
and
natural.
it's very sad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sad music,
Mm-hmm.
and Paul becomes pretty quickly like a tragic character,
Yes.
And this was something not expected by me as someone who didn't know the story very very well, So
Yeah.
that was there was a twist, and I was a little shocked by it, but I found it interesting because I really did think I had to think about it a lot after that, and I watched the film a couple times later, and yeah, this idea of the only way being the thing you didn't want to do, but also it seems that Paul's able to look at it differently. It's like a different perspective. You know, he's able to see, it's like, okay, I was born into all of this. I can't change the past. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
Like
he's accepting the role that he was created to do. Like
exactly. It's an acceptance that things are bigger than him.
Yeah.
That he's fighting against the inevitable, basically. That if he wants to do some good, he has to accept the fact that he's not in control and work from there. You know, accept the fact that he can't change the past and then basically work from there, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's this guy that comes to the realization that he is not actually in control, is the one that's given control in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So the one running it isn't, right?
There's that the scene right at the beginning of the first film where his father is killed, you know, halfway through the first film. And his father says to him, because Paul is doubting his ability to do this, you know, to succeed his father. And his father is saying to him, well, maybe, number one, maybe you'll find your own way to it. So you'll find a way, you know, of taking on this responsibility. And he said, it's kind of cliche, but he says, you know, great leaders don't seek to lead, they're called to it, you know? So we had somebody like Paul who had to resist and reject it, run away from it and refuse to do it until the situation called him to it, and it became at least clear to him in that moment that there was no other alternative, you know.
Yeah, he went all the way out into the vast reaches of the desert, only to return back to the civilization and the mining colony and all that, to have the big end scene there was right in the middle of that, and the emperor's big thing comes down right in the middle of all that. So it's like the joining of the worlds at the end. You've got the natural world, like the Fremen all congregate here because, you know, they've been roused up through their religion to show up there for the final battle, the final judgment or whatever. You've got the actual mining colony, that's it. You've got the other world control base of the emperor coming down in and joining. So you've got like everything's conjoining to this one point to like, okay, well, where do we go from here? All the interested parties are congregated. Now what?
Yep. Yeah. And the film ends on a bit of a cliffhanger because, Paul has he has a duel. He wins the fight because he's clairvoyant. He saw that. That there's images that he had throughout the first, you know, throughout the body of the first and second films, you know, to do with a knife fight, were images of the future basically. And so he knew he was going to win this fight, which he did, and he takes the emperor's daughter as his wife, and declares himself ruler of Arrakis, and unfortunately, the other houses in this universe don't recognize that, and so a war is starting. Basically, the film ends with the beginning of a war. Yeah, and again, you know, just tragic. Like, it's totally not expected by me that it would go this way. So,
do you know if they are they planning on doing like the book did and do sequels to the film, or is it just ending here? Do you know, Adam?
I'm pretty sure that. Yes, they are going to do the third one, but the third one, it's not going to be anytime soon because the third part of the story is quite different, and it basically takes place, I think, 10 years after the events shown in the second film.
Okay.
So there's a big gap there, and I think I've read plenty of. Yeah, you know what it's like with directors. They like to tease, and they say yes even if they who knows what they really mean, but I hope so. I hope so, because I would like to see it.
Yeah, all in due time. But this was Dunes. We covered Dunes. I think we did a good job, Adam. I'm proud of this.
Yeah, I felt that was probably a little maybe wishy-washy on this one because we're kind of trying to combine like two and a half hour films,
Yeah, they're
down
long
into kind
films.
of a
It's been a minute since
yeah,
I've seen them. It's been a little while since I've watched them, so I'm
yeah,
having to
yeah.
recall everything. But it's coming back to me pretty good. I think that speaks to the power of the films that they do stick with you. I really do think that they're really great. If you haven't seen them, they're worth seeing.
They're rich with content, rich with philosophical, esoteric, occult content to keep you interested and keep you thinking for many days after the film. Or at least that was my experience.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and yeah, once again, probably really the only two films that I was able to take seriously in the last 5 or 6 years. So
Yeah,
it really
yes,
stood out.
they did. So now our job is the same, Adam. We got to search for the next thing to talk about on themes and memes. So if anybody has like a suggestion, send it our way. We're
Yeah,
open to that. Otherwise,
there are so many being made now. It seems that the production run is really ramped up again, but it's like they're going straight to Netflix or straight to Amazon or
yes. It seems
something,
it
and
seems like everything's getting lost. I bet there's actually a lot of good stuff that just kind of comes and it disappears immediately and nobody even knows it was there in the first place. I feel like
yeah,
that's what's
yeah,
happening.
yeah. I've seen quite a few of those actually. Sort of like films that look like sort of fairly big budget films with A-list actors and stuff, and they just kind of you see a trailer and then nothing happens and it gets lost. And
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few of those, and so it's kind of odd. I don't know what's happening there, but
It may be that there's some
yeah.
actually really good ones. I remember I can't remember what the film was, but we reviewed something that I believe was like exclusive to Amazon or one of these streaming services, and it was good. Do you remember? Does this ring a bell, Adam? Did we do that? Am I making this up? I don't even remember what
Oh,
it
I can't
was now.
remember.
But
I
I don't
can't.
know. There's just all sorts of crazy. There's media has changed. I mean, we
Oh
know
yeah,
this.
big time. Yeah, yeah,
So that's also a topic of discussion if we care to do that. So
yeah. And also, I don't know whether I mean I know there's a fair bit of commitment involved, but I would also be at least open to doing a series, like one season of a series or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
Because now and again I do get these little hints of like something again, perhaps it's something on Netflix that's maybe a few years old and just how somehow went on the radar, but went under the radar, but it actually looks pretty good. I mean, I can't remember them now, but these things do pop up.
yeah,
These
absolutely.
little things do little interesting things now and again. But like you say, it's this weird scenario where there's so much content out there now that nothing stands out.
No,
It's very
no,
rare that we get something that's like a global phenomenon or that's box office and is like summer blockbuster or films that the films like this or films that we've done in the past. Like, do you remember Joker?
yeah, oh yeah,
The
yeah,
film Joker. Like everybody saw that film and everybody loved it.
yep,
But we haven't had anything like that in a very very long time. So yeah, if listeners have got ideas, then send them our way.
absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
And of course, the website is tmpodcast.com. You can find the every episode still on the feed. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with people. That's really I've been mentioning lately, Adam, that the material, all of our podcasts, they're just kind of, again, it's another piece of media. It gets lost in the fray. The only way that anybody's ever going to even know this exists is just sharing it and word of mouth. So that's
Yeah.
the truth. I know that.
That's right. We will, I think, next month in January, at some point in the new year anyway, we will go on to the Cutting Through the Matrix podcast with
Oh, okay. We are? Okay,
Melissa.
that's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah, I'm
excited
not
about
sure she
that.
contacted you yet. We haven't got a date or anything, but she wants to do she wants to do an interview with both of us
Oh,
at
that'll
some
be
point.
cool. Yeah, yeah, that's going to be
So that
good.
probably do that next year, and that's something else that people can look out for, and that'll be another audience to connect to as well. So
Yeah. Dang.
yeah,
Yeah, you're going
that'll
to
be
be
cool.
excited too, Adam. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, yeah, it should be fun. Yep.
Yep. So until next time, everybody, this was Themes and Memes. we will see you.
Yeah. Till next time.